everyone, and welcome back to the Rave Social Podcast. I'm your host, Jaiden, in case you forgot. And today we have a special guest, Chanlie. Chanlie is actually a podcast editor. I mean, she's way more than a podcast editor. She will do your podcast planning. She knows about podcast strategy. She knows about content strategy, and all of those things and how they all work together to help you grow your business. But she also is a podcast editor, and we're really excited to have her on today to talk about one of her new offer that is the Purposeful Podcast Series. It's a private podcast that teaches you everything you really need to know about starting a podcast for your business. And we're going to have her talk about that. We're going to talk about all things podcast related. It's going to be a really fun time. And Chanlie, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about you and what you're kind of up to, and then we'll jump into it.
Yes, thanks for that cute intro. I appreciate you. So yes, my name is Chanlie. I'm the owner of Paradigm Podcasting. And like Jaiden said, I'm a podcast manager and strategist who helps business owners launch and manage strategic podcasts that attract dream clients to their business and help them grow their business. So
Yes.
I live in Southern Utah, Jaiden's hometown. So we were, I think, around the same age in school.
Yeah.
So we kind of knew each other a little bit growing up. I knew of Jaiden, and then it was so fun to hear and discover what she's up to now in social media and get to follow along with her since then. But
yeah, it's so funny. I feel like there's so many people that we grew up with in St. George that are business owners. I feel like St. George is a very entrepreneurial city, and there's so many people that have come out of there that I've reconnected with, had them on the podcast, either they worked for me or I've worked for them. It's just been so fun. I mean, I don't feel like everyone gets to experience that.
No, I know. And it's fun to see, like I said, what people have taken, what they've done since we grew up together and where they are now. And it's just awesome. So
it's so
I love
awesome
to see what you're up to and all the things you're doing. You're amazing.
Thank you. I feel the same way. And every time you run a marathon, I'm like, damn, girl, she is a very good marathon runner. And you run how many do you run a year? It seems like you run 5.
I have been lately doing maybe 2 a year, but then a few halves here and there. But
okay. She slays. Yeah. She's a very good runner. So if you guys don't already want to follow Chanlie for her incredible podcasting prowess, you're going to want to follow her for that, because that's also a really fun thing about you and following along with your business.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, we'll jump into this. So we're going to talk about how to turn your voice into one of your most powerful marketing tools. I know that people listening to this are used to me talking about social media specifically, but there's so much overlap between starting a podcast and having a podcast for your business and your social media. And it can actually be a support system to help you make better or more content for your social profiles as well. So why don't you talk a little bit about why you think podcasting is one of the most powerful tools for businesses that rely on content to sell their offers?
Yeah. So like you were kind of hinting at, I love podcasting because it can do the heavy lifting of your marketing. So like you said, when you're creating content online, often it's well, where do I start with putting out all the different content that you need, whether it's on social media or blogs or YouTube or all of the above. So a podcast lets you streamline that content. So if you have whatever frequency you do a podcast, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, you are creating that one longer piece of content, whether it's solo or you're having conversations with other people, getting to create that content and then turn it into all those other types of content that you need. So blog posts, social media posts, videos for YouTube, anything you need, like I said. So it just really can help streamline it and take the guesswork out of creating content. You can just use the one piece to create a bunch of other pieces. A lot of content. Yes.
Yeah, I do feel like that's huge. I mean, when people come to me for social media help, some of them are like, I love creating content and it's easy for me. I just don't know how to be strategic. And I'm like, great, I can help you with that. Others are like, I hate creating content. This is not something I want to be doing at all. And those clients, I feel like, are where they can take a look at what they are currently doing. Like maybe they already have a podcast, maybe they already have a newsletter, these other places where they're still putting out content. They just don't realize it because it's not like a carousel on Instagram, and repurpose it for social media.
Yes.
So I love that you said that.
I love working with clients who they're maybe working with a marketing person or a social media person like you, who understand like kind of their overall picture of marketing and how they want their podcast to fit into it. And if they don't, that's something that I like help them understand of how they can use their podcast as like a top of funnel and then create that other content below it. But when you really understand like your podcast can be the cornerstone of your marketing, and then utilizing your other pieces of content like your blog, your YouTube, your social media to point back to the podcast, and then use the podcast to point back to those. It's like a giant circle, and your ideal listeners, your ideal clients are just staying in your circle, getting to know you better and getting more comfortable with you. So
yeah. And I feel like one thing too, like at least for me, it's so much easier for me to be like talking to you on this podcast. Like it's so much easier for me to just be like talking about what I know without trying to structure it into an email or a blog or anything like that. Like I can just kind of flow with my ideas and my thoughts that come up. And that's like way easier for me. And I feel like if you're listening to this and that is what's easier for you too, then a podcast is like a really good opportunity for you because it just presents the space for you to be able to do that, and it will support all the other things you're doing.
Exactly. Like us as business owners can talk so passionately about what we do that sometimes it's hard to like put it into a blog post or put it into an email or something like that. But you can like talk and like just ramble on and on about what you do. And it's so much easier, I think.
I feel like it's another good example is like how easy it is to be on like a discovery call for most people. Like you're just talking to somebody about what you do. And like that's so much easier a lot of times than like really crafting like a perfect piece of content for this or that platform. So I don't know. That's why I love having a podcast. But on that same kind of topic, I am curious to hear what you have to say about like people's hesitations for starting a podcast, like why they do or don't want to. I feel like some that are coming to my mind are like, one, they are worried that they don't have enough ideas to like sustain them for a long-term project like that. Studio equipment, all the different things. Like what are some of those that you hear a lot of, and what's your take?
Yeah. Oh, well, you touched on a couple that I hear all the time. So like one that you said was like studio. Like a lot of people think you need to like book a recording studio. Like you see all of the giant podcasts that are like the Joe Rogans of the world and the whatever that are they're in this professional studio, and they have all of the lighting and the cameras and the microphones and the producer watching as they record, right? But especially if you're using a podcast for your business, you don't need to be in a professional studio. And I would recommend even not like just having a studio in your office or in your home that you can use consistently is going to have the same effect if you have like good quality microphone and headphones and things like that, the basics of what you need to record good quality audio. Then you don't need the full-blown studio. So I would say, I mean, you record, like, I think, in your house too, right? Like,
yeah, I'm honestly in my office, and if you guys could see it right now, you would pass away. There's a reason that I am against the wall, because this place is chaotic. But like really, I mean, you don't need that much to start. When I started my podcast, I did invest in like some of the things that could be more optional. Like I bought the more expensive mic. I bought the interface. Like I did all of that mostly because Reg was like, you need good audio because he produces music and was like,
Yeah.
nobody's going to listen to it if the audio is bad, which I do agree and stand by that. But at the same time, like there are other mics that are not $800 that get the job done too. But it's true. Like you don't need to book studio time. You don't need to do all of that. I would say like, I guess you could prioritize doing that if that is what is easy for you, you know, like if that's easier for you to do that and you have like the money to invest, then do it. But also like, you don't need that really
right.
to make it sound
like,
professional.
There are people, say you have maybe kids at home or you live with roommates or something and it's not going to be like a consistent good environment to record, then of course you want to find a place where you can consistently go and get quality audio. But for a lot of people, especially business owners, they want somewhere that they can consistently go each week or however often they record instead of having to travel to a studio and have all that extra time and expense away from their business. So
I don't have time for that, nor do I want to do that.
Yeah.
And like I think even like my lights, I did get some lights just because like when I moved, I used to record in front of a window, but now I don't have that. So I did get some lights, but they were like, I can't even remember. I think they were like $50 on Amazon. Like they're great. Like you don't need anything crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Another myth that I hear all the time is, or another like big question when business owners are starting podcasts is like sponsorship. So they see like the big podcasts that have all these outside sponsors and they hear them reading the ads and whatnot. And I always recommend going back to the goal of your podcast. So if you're starting a podcast to support your business, going back to focusing on the ROI of bringing clients into your business and using that as a lead nurturing tool and a like referral partnership, just meeting new people, expanding your network type of thing. Focusing on that aspect before you bring in outside sponsors.
And
Because
like,
I feel like
there's like sponsors I get the appeal of a sponsor. And like, I think it also depends on like the kind of podcast you're like, you know, the girls who are yapping and they're not talking about business. They're not marketing anything. They're just like, they're not just influencers. That sounds like rude. That's not what I mean to say. Like they're influencers and like, that's part of their personal brand they're growing. It makes sense for them to have like sponsors pay them to talk about Macy's or whatever. But when it comes to your business, like your your sponsor can be your business. Like talk about your business, sell your own offers. Like you don't need to sell HoneyBook when you can sell your own offer. So I think that's also just like a perspective shift to have, is that it's like, what role is your podcast playing? Because you probably don't need sponsors in the future. Would be obviously awesome to have sponsors and get some passive income, whatever. But like, it's not necessary to have an ROI.
Totally. You always be your own sponsor first is what I always say. Like, you don't need the outside sponsors at first.
And like, honestly, even something about my podcast that I like is like, sure, one day I'd love for this podcast to be like huge and have sponsors and all those things. But honestly, right now, it is just like, it's a space for me to have other business owners on, to put your offers out there, to have conversations with friends, to talk about my own things. Like, I'm not even so married to the ROI, if that makes sense. Like, I'm just like, right now, this is like a place for me to just like test and play and have fun. And yes, it does support my business. I've had people literally be like, I listened to your podcast, I knew I had to hire you. And it's like, awesome, that's so great. That's not even really why I'm doing it, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I love how, like I mentioned, I think before we started recording, how you use your podcast as like a casual format where you can really get to know the person you're talking to. And then you do form those relationships where you can then become referral partners or just get to know each other in a way that you might not have had a chance to connect with that other business owner or something. So just expanding your network.
That's so true. So true. I feel like another one we had in our notes here is like, people think they need a huge audience. How do you feel about that? Like, a huge audience where too? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So that's another question that I hear from clients all the time are like, are my download numbers good? Like, what should I be aiming for? And what I always say is like, you hear of these, like we were talking about giant podcasts who are doing thousands, hundreds of thousands downloads per month. And when you're a business owner, I mean, you have to go back to think about like, how many people can you actually serve? And how many people do you need to be in your circle to connect with to actually be able to support your business, right? So
yeah,
I always go back to the goal of your podcast. So if your podcast is to attract clients to your business, then going back to who do you need to listen to be able to bring into your business? And it's probably not hundreds of thousands of people. So
yeah, like you couldn't even manage that.
Right.
Like that volume, you know?
Yeah. So I always say when you're creating your podcast and then when you're planning episodes for your podcast, really just honing in on who your ideal listener is and creating it for a certain niche audience, because the podcasts that I'm seeing do really well right now are the more niche audiences that the podcasts aren't speaking to everyone and getting like anyone and everyone to listen and be interested in the show. And if you do that, honestly, probably not as many people that you want to listen will be interested because they won't know it's for them.
Yeah,
So
that's so true.
I would argue in some way, the smaller, more loyal audiences are the ones that you want because they're the ones that actually will end up becoming customers.
That's so true. Like, who cares if 50 people listen if one of them signs up for your high ticket offer?
Right.
It's like, that's plenty, you know?
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Are there any other myths you can think of? Or like,
you mentioned
roadblocks, I guess.
earlier, like running out of topics to talk
yeah.
about. So one thing that I don't think there's so many topics that you can talk about, and people think like, once I've talked about this topic, I can't ever talk about it again. And that's so not true. And oftentimes, I mean, you probably run across this with creating contents for clients. Like you'll say the same thing in a different way on a different post, like a million times. And your audience isn't going to be like, you said that last week because you're saying it in a different way, maybe with different stories or
or you're just saying the exact same thing again because nobody like, people aren't always listening and people sometimes just hear what they want to hear at the time. Like you can literally say the same sentence and it hits totally different in July than it does in November. Like it just, you totally can repeat yourself.
Totally. And one thing that helps if you're like stuck on creating content or coming up with ideas, with my clients, we plan their episodes and their podcast quarterly. So going back to like looking at what you have going on in your business, whether you're promoting certain offers during certain periods of your business, and then drawing the topics and the questions that you get about those offers and creating episodes based on those. So you can think about like, what do I get asked all the time? Or what's a common roadblock that someone might have before signing up for this? And because you're a business owner and you're passionate about what you do, you probably have a lot more ideas than you think you do. So
that's so true. And this is a side note tangent, but a freaking valuable truth bomb, everyone, that I have recently started doing is if you use Zoom or Google Meets or any of those platforms for your discovery calls or like monthly calls with clients or anything like that, even just your coaching calls with clients, use the AI transcript. Download it, put it into Claude, and say, what questions are people asking me on these calls? Make me a list.
Yeah.
That's absolutely changed the game for me and in a lot of different things that I'm doing marketing wise right now. But especially if you're like wondering what to create content on, like the questions are already there. You're already doing the discovery calls. You're already doing the coaching calls. You're already doing the monthly alignment calls. Why not let AI just kind of find the questions for you? Then you don't even have to think about it.
Yes. Oh, I love that tip. That's one I'm going to use to recommend when clients are planning episodes.
I know. I mean,
Yeah.
we do it with even our social media clients. Like I've been telling all of them on our calls, like send us your discovery call transcripts, send us your transcripts, like because there's so much value in them. And it's like when you're on those calls, this is such a freaking tangent. Sorry, everybody. Like when you're on those calls, you're not like, oh, they asked me this, like I'm going to write it down. Like you don't think about that. You're just having a conversation. But then when you use like Claude or chat or whatever to pull those questions out, it's like so clear that the questions a lot of times are the same question. And what's nice about Claude too is that it will help you summarize your answer because it's heard. You've responded to it, so then it can summarize it for you so you can talk more about it. But yeah, big tip for y'all there.
So smart. I love that.
Okay, so another question we have on our little list here is what it actually looks like to have a podcast, from recording and time commitment to formats, editing, all of that. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say about this. What can people expect when it comes to that?
Yeah. So I guess it depends on if you're doing the whole production process yourself or if you have help. So yeah. I would say you have like a podcast that's weekly and it's 30 minutes. I would say plan on at least, so you think like recording takes 30 minutes. No, you want to plan on like give yourself at least an hour to an hour and a half to like plan your episode, and then just some leeway time for recording so you can do retakes if you need to or whatnot. So an hour and a half-ish for recording if it's a 30-minute episode. And then for editing, I always recommend at least doing some light editing on your podcast. So taking out like long pauses, mistakes, filler words, anything crazy background noises or anything like that. So the editing process usually takes at least 2 to 3, maybe 4 times if you're new at editing the length of the podcast. So 30-minute episode, it could be up to like 2.5 hours-ish. Yeah. And then you want to write some show notes for your episode. So what will go in the podcast players. So give yourself 30 minutes or more to write those. I like to do some SEO research with that. So if you're doing that, that takes a little bit of extra time as well. So we had an hour and a half for recording, 2 for editing. So we're 2.5 hour, 3.5 hours. So give yourself, and then if you're creating content, like clips for social media, or you're turning your content into carousels or blog posts or emails, an hour or 2 at least to create those. So 30-minute episode weekly can take 5-6 hours a week-ish. And then you can obviously cut down that time if you have someone supporting you. The recording is usually the easier, shorter part, but
yeah, I was going to say, like, that's why I feel like if you do have a podcast, going into it, like, knowing that you're going to outsource it. Like, I would just like advise you to like, don't even try to be the editor, content creator. Like, I feel like that's such a quick way to burn yourself out of your own podcast, because you think you're going to sit down, like we were saying, like for an hour, 30 minutes to record, and you think that's the end of it, but it's like, that's actually just the beginning. And here's the thing. I don't think you or I are here to like scare someone away from starting a podcast. Obviously, we're here because we know the value, we see the value, we're doing it, right? But I think if you want to do it because you're like lazy with your marketing and you're like, this is just like the easiest, quickest way, like it's not going to be.
Yeah.
But it is going to be one of the most powerful ways, especially if you feel strong in your voice and having these conversations, you know?
Oh yeah, totally. And going off of like what you said, if you think it's going to be like, it is, I think it streamlines your marketing in a lot of ways, like I was saying earlier, but sometimes people kind of go into it thinking, I'm just going to have a podcast and I'm not going to be on social media. But like we were saying, they work together. And I would recommend having your podcast that supports your social media, helps you create content, makes it easier. Then your social media points back to your podcast, and your email points to your social and podcast and all the things, a big circle, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it can make things easier, but it's not like podcast only and I'm going to disappear from everywhere else.
Yeah, I feel like it's more so like, do you, like we were kind of saying it at the beginning, but it's like, do you want to use your voice? Is that the easiest way for you to talk about your offers and what you do? Because if it is, then you should definitely do a podcast and just know that it is a time investment in whatever way, because that's going to feel better to you than trying to write a blog or whatever. It's still going to be probably the same amount of work, but it's going to feel better. It's going to be more fun. It's going to be more engaging for you and your audience than doing it a way you don't like. I just think like it's good to have the awareness of it. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. And you were talking about using transcripts earlier. Take your podcast transcript, or if you don't have a podcast yet, record yourself. If you like talking and you just want to yap about whatever topic that you love to talk about, take your transcript and take it to use it to write a blog post. Like use it to write a social media post. Like utilize the tools that you have. AI is awesome. And I definitely recommend using it if you train it to sound like you, but use it.
It's so funny. Like your podcast will train your AI how to talk like you. It can hear your voice. Like it knows exactly what you're saying, exactly what words you like to use, like your tone, everything. I've even taken an episode and been like, Claude, this is my tone. Like this is how I want my all my content to sound, is like me when I'm in this episode. And I just think, definitely use AI, especially to repurpose all of those things.
Yeah.
It's a time investment, but I think it's worth it, honestly. And there are definitely ways to cut that down. Like having a manager, I feel like you being able to like set up your clients' episodes and give them questions and outlines and all of that is so helpful. And then being there right when it's recorded, you're able to just like take on that work for them, edit it, process it, help with social media, all the different things. Like that's where it becomes like a really strong tool for your business.
It's more fun when you can just pass off the work and you can just have the fun conversation. So
yeah, and then you don't have to learn how to do podcast editing, which it's funny. You probably experience this. People like think it's easy, but it's not.
It can turn into a lot for sure.
Yeah. Just wait till you have like an episode where the video and audio don't line up. Horrible. Okay, one other thing I think we should talk about is how podcasts do deepen that audience connection. Like we've talked about how like, you can repurpose it, all these different things, but like how does the podcast actually like deepen that connection by them like hearing your voice and seeing more of you?
Yeah, totally. So we touched earlier, like your social should point to your podcast and a big circle. So when people listen to you on a podcast, they are spending more time with you than they would on anywhere else, on social, on email. You have their attention for longer and they're hearing your voice for a longer period of time than they would if they were even like listening to talk on a reel or your stories. So they're getting to know you better. They're getting to know how you talk, how you work, how you think, and really feeling comfortable with, oh, yes, this person is someone who I really resonate with how they think and how they approach their business, how they approach whatever they do, and really getting comfortable with working with you before they ever have to actually contact you and have that first call with you. So it's just it's so intimate.
It is so intimate. And like, I think hearing people talk is so much information. Like it's a similar reason why I encourage my clients to do like talking head reels and things like that, is because like if somebody's going to invest, like say they're investing in a course with you, but they've never heard you talk, it's going to be like just subconsciously harder to connect with them. But if they do get to hear you talk and how your cadence and how you coach and how you teach and all those things, like they're going to be way more warmed up to making that investment with you.
Yeah. Especially for like higher ticket offers or long-term commitments, like people need to feel comfortable with who you are and know that you're going to vibe together before they commit to working with you. And yeah, a podcast is just a really great way for them to actually get to know you, make sure that they resonate with who you are rather than, it's just an easier way for them to do that.
And like, it just gives more context too. For example, I say things on this podcast that like, it's not that I would never say them on social media. It's just that like, they don't make sense to say on like in a carousel or like whatever. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to say it there. It does make sense for me to say it here. And it gives you so much more context into who I am as a person, the offers I have, the knowledge I have, etc.
Yeah, you can't say a deep behind the scenes story or background in like a 10-second reel. So you can use your podcast to then like inform content for social media and then be able to connect deeper on social too. So
I think especially because you're taking a longer piece of content and like you can just pull out, because everybody knows like the social media things they're small clips. Like it's small clips and you can pull a lot of those from your podcast. Not just like a clip like you're used to seeing like us talking right now. Like could be a clip. It can also be like a hook comes out of your episode that you use on a reel with a different caption. It could be a carousel of value adds or whatever. Like there's so many ways you can repurpose it beyond just like a video clip.
Yeah, totally. I'm curious, have you worked with any clients who have a podcast and you've been able to take content from it like that?
Yeah, definitely. Most of my clients have a podcast actually that we pull things from constantly. So yeah, absolutely. And then I also have some clients that their business is the podcast. And of course, that's all we do is pull content from their podcast. Right. Yeah. Cool. And it can do a lot. Okay. So on that same note then, how would somebody know if podcasting is a good fit for their business? We've kind of touched on this, but I'm curious, what are some indicators?
Yeah. So one is like your offers are clear. So you know what you do, you know who you serve, but maybe people just aren't converting. So like we talked about before, like maybe they're not getting to know you well enough on social or through your email to like convert, to commit to working with you. So if you have, like I said, a clear offer, but people just aren't making that commitment, then a podcast could be a really powerful tool to get them to that finish line. Yeah. Another one is like you create content consistently, but you kind of want a more streamlined way to do that. A podcast can be a really great way to, like we talked about earlier, act as the cornerstone of your marketing and then use it to create all your assets from there. So, like I talked about, like if you're planning your podcast quarterly, so going back to what you have going on in your business, creating episodes around topics that support your offers that you're promoting, and then your podcast episode then gets turned into a reel that supports your launch that you have going on, and you use your podcast episode to create that content, and just a big circle. So if you consistently create content, but you want to streamline it, that's another really great reason.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I also feel like if you want to have a podcast, like I don't feel like you should ever start a podcast because you feel like you have to, or because you feel like, oh, that's what everyone else is doing, so that's what I should be doing. It's like, do you want to? Does it sound fun? Like, would it energize you and add to your life in a positive way? Because there's other ways to market if you don't, if you're not into it.
Yes, totally. If you don't love to record yourself, I mean, that can be like a common roadblock of like people don't think that they're naturally good on a microphone or whatnot. And that can be, I think, practice. And a podcast, especially if you're not recording video, which you don't have to, it can be a really great way to like experiment with talking about what you do, because you can re-record a sentence as many times as you want and cut it, and no one will ever know. So a podcast can be a really great way to practice talking about what you do.
That's so true. I love that. And one other thing we have here is, what are like the first steps people should take if they are podcast curious, and what is a waste of time?
Yeah, I would say the very first thing that you should do if you're thinking about starting a podcast is, one, identify your goals for your podcast. So, are you using it to support your business? And like, how is it supporting your business? So, is it bringing in more clients to a particular offer or program, or all of the things you do? So, the particular goal. So, going back to when we were talking about sponsorships, like that will help you stay focused on why you're creating the podcast and what kind of content you're creating for your podcast. So, what's your goal? And then who is your audience that you're talking to? So, like I mentioned earlier, you don't want to create a podcast that is talking to anyone and everyone. The podcasts that are doing really well and that will support your business the best are the ones that are creating content that are speaking to a certain niche audience. So really understand your audience and what they want to hear from you and what can help them right now, and creating the exact podcast that will serve them really well.
Yeah, I love that. I know we talked about like maybe you don't need to invest in all the equipment, blah, 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 but what do you feel like is a waste of time when people get started?
I would say we already talked about like worrying about all of the studio equipment. You don't need to worry about, I think people get hung up on like inviting the biggest, they think they need to have really big name guests and all the things. You don't need to have like celebrities on your podcast. And in fact, I would say solo episodes are just as important or more important for business owners because you're wanting to showcase your own expertise.
Yeah.
So it's great if you can get like big name guests that they can definitely help your podcast grow, but that would be something that I would not focus on right when you're starting.
Yeah.
Another thing, yeah.
I feel like one thing, I don't know that this is really a waste of time, but one thing that I experienced when I first started my podcast is I realized like my solo episodes were so much shorter, obviously. But it freaked me out. I was like, how am I going to yap for 40 minutes, like to an hour? Because that's kind of what my podcast episode lengths were at the time. And then when I would record by myself, it would be like 20 minutes. And I'd be like, oh my God, like I have nothing else to say. What am I going to say? What is your take on podcast lengths? Should you worry about that?
Yeah, I get that question all the time. Like, what length is the best? And going back to knowing your audience, you want to create episodes that they want to listen to. So how much time does your ideal listener have to listen? So, yeah. And you don't have to commit to like my podcast episodes are exactly 45 minutes every time. You can have deeper dive episodes with guests where you are going into a topic for 45 minutes, or you're going deeper into their story for longer time. And then solo episodes, like you said, you're just talking to yourself. So they might be a lot shorter, but that's okay. Like you oftentimes guests or listeners will appreciate just getting right to the point. So one thing I've noticed, especially recently where there's so much content out there, is listeners want to click play on an episode and whatever is promised in the title and the show description, if you get to that sooner, the listener retention rate stays more consistent throughout the episode rather than dropping off. So if you can kind of get to whatever point you're talking about rather than sharing what you did this weekend and whatnot, and you can weave that into your episode for sure. Yeah. But definitely like shorter episodes, solo episodes, if you really deliver the content that people came for right away, in like actionable
way more
steps.
Interested.
Yeah, they're interesting. People will likely come back for more because they know they're going to give me exactly what I came for right away. I don't have to listen to all the rest of the stuff. So even if they're shorter, that's fine.
Yeah. I feel like too, because I think when people think of podcasts, most of the time they think of like whatever kind of fun podcast they like to listen to. Maybe it's like Crime Junkies, maybe it's Call Her Daddy, maybe it's Joe Rogan, whatever it is. They immediately think of those. And those are most of the time podcast episodes that you can listen to while you're going on a run, sewing, doing a project, doing the dishes. Like, they're episodes that you kind of have on in the background where like, if you are creating a podcast that is like for business owners, for example, because probably if you're listening to this, that's what you're trying to do. Maybe having a shorter episode that's 15 to 20 minutes that people have to like sit down, watch the YouTube video. They have to really be attentive and they're going to get that good information out of it. That could be a better approach for you anyways.
Yeah. Well, and especially you mentioned like the version of you're going on a run, you're doing whatever, rather than like the actionable steps or the actionable takeaways that people are going to get from like a business podcast. Like if you're a business owner and you're wanting to attract clients, you're probably going to create episodes that are answering a question that they have right now that's going to help them move past a roadblock that they're having in their business and feel more confident working with you. So it probably is going to be more actionable things where they do want to sit down, they do want to listen, maybe even take notes of like, this is what I want to do. And people will probably be searching for those type of episodes, like how to get more clients from social media, how to do whatever in my business, because that's the problem that they're having right now. So
yeah. Ooh, I love that. I just love that. And I love the take on of the podcast links. I feel like that's even something that I need to work on still. Is there anything else you would add to anything that we've said? Do you want to talk about anything else specifically?
I feel like we covered a lot of it. We kind of touched on like the different trends I'm seeing. So like I was going to talk about, trends, but we kind of talked about them already. Like niche podcasts are doing so much better than like when podcasts exploded in 2020 and like anyone would listen to like a deep dive into anyone's story type of podcast. And now it's like, get to the point. We touched on like video a little bit. Video is doing well. So if you can, and you want to add a video component, that can be a really great way to expand your reach. Any other questions you have about podcasting?
I think that if you're listening to this podcast and you're like interested in starting a podcast, what you need to do is go listen to Chanlie's free series. So you can really soak up and get all the details and all the points that you need. And then when you're ready, just hire Chanlie. How does that sound, everybody?
Perfect.
And then she'll do all the parts of it that are going to drive you insane. And you can just do the fun recording part that's going to help you grow your business.
Yes. If you have a podcast now and you're burnt out, reach out to me, because it does become a lot, and it becomes like a chore if you have to like set aside a whole day out of your week to produce your podcast. It becomes not fun. So
no, and outsourcing is everything. Like let Chanlie be in her zone of genius while you be in yours, and then save those 5 hours to go do something fun with your kids or launch a new offer or go to sleep, whatever you need, and let her do the part that she's really good at.
Yes. Go take a break.
I love it so much. I'm so glad you came on today, Chanlie, and we're so excited to have everyone follow you and do a deeper dive into your offers and your free podcast series. And hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
I would love that. And I would love to, I know you live in northern Utah, I'm in southern Utah, but next time you come down, let me know. I would love to get coffee or something.
Yes, we will. Okay, everyone say bye, Chanlie. Bye.
Bye.